I rise today in opposition to the General Appropriations Bill, Senate Bill 1001. While I agree with Senator Collette's comments regarding some of the high points, and thankfully there's a few, these aren't missed opportunities. This, to me, is not historic. It's only historic in the way that the majority of the way this budget and its associated code bills and trade list bills have left a lot of Pennsylvanians behind and certainly pleased a lot of corporate for-profit entities with tax cuts that leave our state deficit larger than it already is, making our tax policies here in the Commonwealth frankly flat out unfair, with those companies and entities that use our public roads, public bridges, and resources not paying their fair share in taxes, and certainly the regular resident of Pennsylvania being not only overburdened by rising costs from inflation from corporate greed, but also the lack of protections and public safety investments that this budget failed to implement. I want to just mention that this budget flat funds many critically important programs, and we all know that flat funding year to year means a cut because, as we all are well aware of, inflationary costs are annual. In fact, this General Assembly and the Governor's Office got their own increase in funding to operate, but unfortunately, rape crisis centers, expanded medical services for women, behavioral health services, child care assistance for working families, they were flat funded, zero. The budget also completely includes $0 for a very successful and necessary program, the Whole Home Repairs Program, which helped many homeowners across the Commonwealth and in every single Senate district in all 67 counties. $0. Also, as the chair of Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee in the Senate, this budget does nothing to help our EMS and fire companies who are all struggling. The governor's budget proposal had an additional $30 million for the fire and EMS grant program, and unfortunately that didn't make the cut. Thankfully, the budget did reauthorize the actual program through 2029, but it fails to invest any additional funding into these necessary grant programs to keep all of our EMS and fire companies operating at full capacity with full resources. So next time, if one of your constituents has a late response time to an emergency call, I hope we all recall this moment in time. Additionally, along with my other colleagues that represent Chester County, we advocated, along with members on the other side of the aisle, to ensure Chester County was included in part of the initiative for a fire tax millage pilot program. That did not make the cut either, but other counties did. This would have been essential to address the concerns raised by Chester County municipalities and communities, and this mileage increase would have been welcomed by the Chester County emergency services providers and municipalities. Mr. President, a state budget is said to be a statement of our moral compass, our values, showing our constituents what the priorities of this legislature are for the people that we represent. And I cannot support a budget that ignores the priorities of so many of our constituents. I also cannot support a budget that greenwashes the harm being endured from the fossil fuel-induced climate crisis and having $0 to help prevent or recovery efforts when we have floods and extreme weather incidents. We had many session days, we're late on this budget, and here we are at the final hour, again, reading hundreds of pages in the last minute. As my grandmother always said, haste makes waste. So while there are some things in here in this budget that may be helpful, it certainly is not what public service is meant to be, and it's certainly not what our constituents expect from us. And unfortunately, we're going to leave this building with a lot of people left behind. I encourage my colleagues to vote no on Senate Bill 1001. Thank you, Mr. President.